Before and After is the 15th episode of the second season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now. As I talk about the episode, I'll go through things chronologically and share some thoughts. And it's definitely an enjoyable episode, but with some emotional moments as well. I don't necessarily think it's one of the funniest episodes. That's not saying much because a lot of the funny episodes are incredibly funny, but that doesn't bother me too much because it's an interesting story with some really great performances. It starts off with Rose making a wedding cake for somebody, and she has 1,000,001 other things to do as well. And we have quite a dramatic moment where Rose is in the other room and we hear not so much a crash, but we definitely hear something falling. And we very quickly establish that this is Rose, and all she can say is call an ambulance, which is not something I want to be seeing. I don't want to see Rose hurting like that or panicking. It's not a pleasant experience. And we are at the hospital. And we very quickly find out that it was a constriction of the food pipe. And once the doctor is out of the room, she says quite delightfully to Blanche and Dorothy, I died and went to heaven. And she tells this story about how she went to heaven. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure when this happened, because I don't think she was unconscious at any point. I think Dorothy suggested she might have been hallucinating. I don't know, maybe they gave her anesthesia at some point, but either way, something happened where she thought she died, and maybe she did, who knows. I feel like the doctor would have mentioned it, but nevertheless, this is what Rose believes, and she believes that she has been given a second chance to live life in a way that she's meant to live it, rather than constantly just living to please other people. And we don't really get to see too much about what Rose got up to. It very quickly develops over a couple of minutes, and we find out that she's basically becoming impossible to live with. And it's not so much Rose that's impossible to live with. That definitely seems hard to believe. But at the same time, it's because of her, because people are phoning at all hours, and basically the people with whom she's socializing are making Rose difficult to live with. And she says, fine, if I'm difficult to live with, I'll move out. And I think it is the next scene, and she's moved out, and her new housemates are called Liz and Stephanie. And we very quickly establish that they're not really interested in getting to know Rose as a person. Not in a nasty way. They just keep themselves to themselves. And at some point in the episode, they actually do say, we're roommates. We don't really want to be friends with one another. And if that's the kind of setup you want, personally, that's the kind of setup I would want if I had to share accommodation with somebody. But it's very clear that somebody like Rose wants that more meaningful connection. And it's awkward to see her feeling hurt like this and not really knowing what to do with herself. On the plus side, the house is gorgeous. We basically just see the one main room, but it is stunning. Really, really beautiful, and it's right on the beach, apparently. We don't get to see that, but it certainly seems like a nice property. Meanwhile, Blanche has gone shopping to try and cheer herself up. She's bought a gift for Dorothy as well. I won't say what the gift is, but if you haven't seen the episode yet, I will say maybe try and guess. I would put money on nobody guessing correctly, but it's good fun and a nice way to add a little bit of comedy in this. Sophia also adds a bit of humour as she decides, well, initially she wants to tell a story. They won't let her, so she tells an anecdote instead. And I loved Blanche and Dorothy's faces when she was telling this anecdote. And again, that's a nice little bit of comedy. It's not laugh out loud funny, but it definitely helps to break up the more emotional scenes. And Sophia just comes out with it, and she says, if you really miss her, go tell her. Maybe she misses you too. And Blanche and Dorothy do go and visit her. And unfortunately, nobody is willing to admit the truth. Rose just tells them that she's having a great time and spending loads of time with her beach friends. And Dorothy and Blanche just say they were in the neighbourhood. They're glad she's happy. She has a lovely home. And they don't say, we really miss you. And I think there's a great message here. Say what you feel, because you never know the other person, what the other person is feeling. They might be feeling something that really is in line with what you're also feeling. Otherwise, you might end up in a situation like this where nobody's happy because nobody's willing to admit how they really feel. However, we go back to the house with Blanche and Dorothy, and the next thing we know, Rose is standing behind them. And they don't see her to begin with, but we, the viewer, do, which I thought was a really lovely touch. And what I love most about this is that they just pick up where they left off. And we have a brief moment where I think it was Blanche said, "Does this mean you're back?" And Rose said, "If you'll have me." And that's it. That's as far as the conversation went. They didn't overanalyze it. They didn't make a big deal out of it. Rose didn't grovel and apologise. They didn't try and make her feel bad for leaving or try and question her actions or anything. They just accepted it and picked up where they left off as if nothing has happened. And I think that was really beautiful in a really lovely way. I don't know if Rose is going to change going forward. I hope not. I mean, obviously I want Rose to spend a bit more time on herself rather than doing everything for everybody else. But at the same time, I don't want Rose's character to change too much because I do love Rose for who she is. So hopefully there are no significant changes. But if she starts to do things for herself, that can't be too bad at all. Before and After is a really great episode. Maybe not as funny as some, but still very well done, very moving. Also, Rose's outfits in this. I don't know why I always seem to love Rose's outfits more than anybody else's, with exceptions. But in particular, I loved what she was wearing throughout this, particularly her final outfit. Really loved it. Great episode. Might not be the funniest, but Before and After is still pretty brilliant.